Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and make sense of the wild world of startups. You know, that place where losing millions of dollars isn't just okay, it's sometimes the actual plan.
I mean, you've seen the headlines, right? Some new company raises an insane amount of money. And then you hear they're just burning through it at an incredible speed. It looks like they're just setting a giant pile of cash on fire.
So, what's the deal? Is this whole thing just a giant, reckless gamble? Or is there actually some kind of method to all this madness? Well, let's follow the money and see if we can figure it out.
All right, so to understand any of this, we have to start with a really basic question. How in the world do you put a price tag on a dream? You know, for a company that has zero profits, maybe not even a single dollar in revenue yet.
Okay, so the secret weapon here is this method called comparables. And honestly, it's way more of an art than a science. The idea is actually pretty simple. You figure out the value of something you don't know by looking at something you do know that's kind of similar. So on paper, the process looks easy enough, right? Find a similar company that's already public, figure out its value multiple, and then just apply that to your startup. But here's the catch. The real fight, the real battleground, is all in step one. Is your brand new social media app more like, say, Facebook, or is it more like Pinterest? The answer to that question can swing the valuation by millions. And believe me, that's where the founders and the investors really start to go at it.
So once everyone agrees on that multi-million-dollar number, a clock starts ticking loudly. And now we have to talk about how that big, abstract valuation connects to the very real act of spending cold, hard cash.
And that brings us to the famous, or maybe infamous, burn rate. Simply put, it's the money a startup has to spend now on all the important stuff: marketing, hiring top talent, building the product, long before the money from customers starts rolling in.
And this right here is the central dilemma every startup faces. You have to burn cash to grow. There's no way around it. But if you grow too fast, you could literally burn through all your money and just go out of business. On the other hand, if you try to save cash, you might just kind of linger around forever, never really getting big enough to make a dent. It's a tough spot.
You know, this whole dilemma really pulls back the curtain on the central conflict in the startup universe. Because here's the thing. Even though the founder and the investor are supposed to be on the same team, they're often playing two completely different games with two different rulebooks.
Okay, let's look at the venture capitalist, the VC. They don't just invest in one company. They're playing a portfolio game, and they go into it knowing, fully expecting that most of their bets will fail. I mean, just look at these numbers. Around 65% of their investments won't even make their money back. So their entire model, their whole reason for existing, is to find those few moonshots, that tiny 10%, that will go absolutely nuclear and pay for all the losses and then some. This is so important to understand. VCs aren't looking for a bunch of small, modest wins. That doesn't work for them. They need a couple of their companies to become gigantic, world-changing successes. It's the only way their math works out. For a VC, slow and steady growth is basically the same as failing. But now, let's flip the coin and look at the founder. For them, this big push for crazy growth comes with a huge personal cost. It has a name: dilution. Think of the company as a pie. Every time the founder takes money from an investor, their personal slice of that pie gets smaller. And this is where things can get kind of weird. Just look at this example with our fictional company, Magic Inc. So to grow faster, they take more money from their VC. The whole company's value goes up, right? From 62 to 68 million. That sounds good. But look what happens to the founder. Their ownership stake gets watered down from 60% all the way to 20%. So even though the company is worth more, their personal slice is now worth way, way less than before. And the VC, well, their investment just more than doubled in value. Crazy, right? So this right here is the fundamental tension that drives so much of what we see in the startup world. The VC has every financial reason to push for that growth at all costs playbook, even when that exact same strategy waters down the founder's ownership and can totally change what motivates them. Okay, so we've got all the puzzle pieces on the table now. Let's start putting them together and see the bigger picture. How all this supposed madness is actually a very, very calculated system designed for one thing: finding those super rare moonshots.
So that whole get big fast mantra you hear all the time, it's not crazy. It's a system, a very logical, even if super risky system that VCs use to sift through tons of companies to find the one or two that have that real home run potential. It's not a bug in the system, it's the whole point. It's the feature. And this logic doesn't just stop at if a startup should grow, but how. A VC who is always hunting for that massive 50 times return is almost always going to push for the riskier, bigger bet, launching a totally new product or jumping into a market they know nothing about. Why? Because that's where the truly gigantic payoffs are hiding.
So here's the big takeaway. The next time you read a dramatic headline about a startup, just remember, it's probably not random chaos. It's almost always the predictable result of two very powerful and often clashing forces at work. The founder, who has all their eggs in one basket, and the VC, who's playing a numbers game with a whole portfolio.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. When a startup gets pushed to scale no matter what, who do you think is really taking the biggest risk? Is it the investor who has dozens of other bets, or is it the founder who has poured their entire life into this one single dream?